It's really hard to work with large numbers, especially when we're dealing with so many issues of mental health.
It's not enough about the money. It's for the sizes for the classrooms and the cuts for the kids.
We feel united, we feel strong, we feel like we're supported, like it feels great.
Changing gears to one of the other big developing stories, this one right here in Ontario. Hundreds of thousands of teachers are on strike across this province. Talks between teachers and the government have been stalled for months. Today, all 4 teachers' unions walked off the job at once, leaving some parents scrambling to find childcare. The focus now has moved from Queen's Park, though, to Niagara Falls, where the Ontario PC Party Convention is being held this weekend. And that's where we find the CBC's Mike Crawley tonight. Hey, Mike.
Hi, Vashi.
So we've got an interview with one of the union heads coming up a bit later in the show, but I know you had a chance to interview Education Minister Stephen Lecce this morning. What did he have to say?
So I asked him to react to the size of this strike. Tens of thousands of teachers were circling Queen's Park while I was inside chatting with him. And, he was pointing at one point in time towards the fact that negotiations with the Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association, one of the 4 unions involved, that those negotiations went on late last night. And he was frustrated about the fact that the union was striking instead of actually being at the negotiating table.
Sorry, you gotta go. You can't be here.
Excuse me.
You can't go. You gotta be
Sorry,
here.
I'm on. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, Vashi. There's a security trying to stop us from doing this report, kind of thing. Yeah. So the Ontario PC Party is trying to has sent people out here to try to chase this away. It's the Ontario PC Party is saying that.
As well, please.
So the Ontario PC Party is having this convention, and they're saying that media are not allowed. We weren't allowed inside.
Okay, Mike.
Now they're actually in the process of trying to chase us away from being outside on the sidewalk.
Do you want us to stay with you, or do you want to take a minute to move somewhere else?
Trespass or go peacefully, please.
So
if I can get you gentlemen to make your way off, we're going to trespass, yes, please. Thank you.
Sorry.
So we got 2 choices, gentlemen. Leave peacefully or trespass. Leave peacefully or trespass.
There's no signs out here telling me that.
This is private property. There have to be no signage.
Okay.
Crawley?
Yes, actually.
Sorry, unfortunately.
Okay, so back to what the Education Minister had to say about. Hi. So.
I can play this game too. I'm not cold, so I'm gonna have to ask you guys to leave one more time. Okay. Thank you. I understand you have a job to do, so do I, but please make your way out before police come.
Hi, Vash, are you still with me?
I'm still with you, Mike. You let me know what you want to do.
Yeah. Education Minister Stephen Lecce, in the interview that I had with him today, was talking about progress being made at the bargaining table,
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and have police come out now.
But
thank you very much.
the negotiations broke off last night. He was concerned that the Catholic teachers had actually had some momentum towards a deal,
right.
And that instead they were out striking today. Those talks are going to resume on Monday. I think we have a clip from the interview that I had with Stephen Lecce, if you want to play that now.
Let's play it.
On classroom sizes, I've been clear. We are maintaining the lowest classroom size in Canada for the earliest years of learning. And when it comes to high schools and the other impacts there, I'm prepared to work in good faith with the unions to find an innovative way to keep classroom sizes down. But you can't increase compensation wages by $1.5 billion and then expect all the other investments.
Good to come back.
Hey, Mike, we're back with you now.
We can talk about the convention.
So just to include our viewers here, you're outside of the Ontario PC Convention. You were earlier, obviously, at Queen's Park talking to the minister. You're at the PC Convention in Niagara Falls right now. You're getting a rough ride from security there who don't want you even reporting from the sidewalk, apparently. Can you talk a bit about the convention?
Yeah, so the PCs are gathered here to develop their policy for re-election, effectively, because they're in the middle of their mandate. The party convention this weekend is supposed to basically kind of kick off that process for figuring out how they're going to get re-elected, how they're going to pitch themselves to Ontarians for a second term. Okay, so now it seems that somebody from the party has actually got the security to move away, so I
Great.
can continue working.
You're the best for
Thanks.
sticking that out.
So-
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, the party policy is supposed to get developed from the grassroots up. So they've got a bunch of party members here going to be gathered over the course of the weekend to, sit in rooms, come up with some policy ideas. One of the factors, though, that they're facing right now is a bit of division internally from among the social conservative elements of the party. And there's also, potentially some concerns about Doug Ford's leadership, because you got to remember, he won the leadership of this party by the skin of his teeth, rode this party to victory in the election. But there's a certain amount of people within this party who aren't necessarily convinced that he's the right guy to be leading them. So I'm going to be having my ear to the ground when they let me in to try to hear, what folks are saying about Doug Ford's leadership. We're going to wait and see to what actually comes out of this in the way of policy and platform, because the PCs are going to need to have some sort of a convincing message as to why they should be reelected, why Doug Ford should get a second term here in Ontario. So that'll be developed over the course of the weekend.
A lot to watch for. I look forward to your coverage this weekend, and I appreciate your professionalism tonight. Thanks, Mike.
Well, and nod to Rob, too, for the
And very
good
much, thank you very much to Rob from all of us at PNP as well. Thanks, guys.
The thing that parents want to know is, when is this going to end? How is this going to end?
Look, I understand fully, and I've heard it from parents, I've heard it from educators, I've heard it from everyone. They want this to end. They want kids in class. And I'm committed to achieving that end through a negotiated settlement. I appreciate this cannot go on indefinitely. There's got to be some finality. And my commitment is to, as I've said, redouble our efforts, work in good faith, get a deal that keeps kids in class.
2 million Ontario school kids were out of the classroom today as all 4 of the province's public school teachers' unions went out on strike. Here's what led to today's job action. All 4 of the province's major teachers' unions are taking part in some form of strike action. Collectively, they represent more than 2 million students. Today, they're all on strike as teachers stage a historic joint one against the Ford government. This follows a month of rotating strikes and administrative job action. There is one issue they all share. That's compensation. The unions are seeking a cost of living increase of 2%. The government wants to limit it to 1%. But beyond money, the issues differ between elementary and high school teachers. The latter are protesting class size increases and mandatory online courses. Elementary school teachers are pushing back against special education funding cuts and changes to who a principal can hire. Where do talks stand with the union? Right now, just 2 of those unions are at the table negotiating with the provincial government. So where do negotiations stand now, and what should parents expect in the coming weeks? Harvey Bischof is the president of the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation. He joins us from our Toronto studios. Hi, Mr. Bischof. Thanks for making time for us again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So let me start off just by asking you, for clarity's sake, for the parents watching tonight, where do things stand with your union? Are there... last time you were on the show last week, we were talking about the possibility that the province wants a private mediator, et cetera, et cetera. Where do things stand right now?
I just heard the minister in that clip talking about doubling and redoubling his efforts, but when his efforts since December the 16th with regard to our bargaining have been 0, he can redouble that and it's still 0. We haven't met for over 2 months, and for the life of me, I can't understand why the minister is taking that approach.
Is it just the minister? Have you signaled a willingness, for example, to the mediator that you're okay to go back to the table right now?
We're prepared to go back as soon as the mediator invites us back, and I'm assuming she's waiting to hear that the government is prepared to put some productive proposals on the table that will safeguard the quality of education for our students. And apparently the minister hasn't done that, although he appears to have done that at other tables, and that makes me question why it is that the students that my members serve don't deserve the same sort of effort from this minister as the students who are served by the members of the other federations.
So actually that's exactly what I wanted to ask, because the Catholic school teachers, we had Liz Stewart on yesterday, she says they just had 2 days of meaningful talks. I see now that I think they just announced not too long ago that they're actually suspending their rotating strikes as those types of talks continue. Is there a discernible difference, I guess, in the positions of your unions or the asks of the province that might contribute to the sort of discrepancy?
You know, in broad strokes, I think there isn't much discernible difference. I wouldn't speak for my colleagues in the Catholic Teachers Association, of course, but considering that what we have on the table is status quo to the quality of education we were able to deliver just last year, the differences have to be pretty marginal.
What about the flexibility, not the flexibility, sorry, rather the class size issue? Because that is something that your union has talked about. Minister Lecce earlier this week said he did signal some flexibility on class sizes, saying he'd rather make further moves on those than on compensation for teachers. What do you read into that?
Well, the appropriate way to signal that flexibility is not to do another scrum, not to do another press conference. The way to signal that flexibility is to go and talk to the mediator and say, I have a move that I think would be productive. Why don't you bring the parties back to the table? But he hasn't done that.
Do you know that for certain?
I'm sorry?
Do you know that for certain?
Well, I know that because we haven't heard from him, the mediator, inviting us back to the table. So yes, I do know that. And so again, it makes me wonder, what sort of a game is he playing with students' educational experience at this time when we're clearly at a critical point? He
says he's willing to bend on class sizes. I take your point that this isn't being done through the mediator, but because that's what I'm hearing, I'm going to put it to you. He says he's willing to bend on the class sizes. If you're willing to bend, your union, your members are willing to bend on compensation. Are they?
So I've said all along, these are matters to be discussed at the bargaining table. We can bring creative problem solving when we're sitting face to face and talking through these issues. But I do think it's important for context to recognize that they haven't offered 1%. They've legislatively interfered in the constitutionally approved collective bargaining process by legislating a 1% cap. So those are quite different things. When he talks about bargaining in good faith, they haven't bargained in good faith from the outset. And that is an important context for the difficult situation we find ourselves in now.
It is part of the context, but does it impact the way in which the position that your union takes on it? Or again, I go back to my question. I understand that you don't want to reveal where you stand publicly, but the way the government has framed this, I think, the way parents perceive it is, the message that they've been given is teachers are not willing to bend on compensation. This is all about money. I'm asking you to respond to that.
Yeah, and my response is we can bring that to the bargaining table, have those discussions, and come to resolutions that support the critical things that I've talked about repeatedly, which are quality of education issues, which are having sufficient caring professionals in our schools to support students, not imposing mandatory learning on our students when all the evidence says that that's not, that doesn't support student success. These things can be worked out at bargaining tables if we're there.
So let's look ahead to the next few weeks. As I mentioned, the Catholic teachers, they're having discussions, so they've suspended rotating strikes. What's the plan for your union?
Well, we've announced as of this afternoon that we have another rotating strike that will occur next Friday. But, we have repeatedly offered to the government that we would postpone our strikes if they'd simply commit to last year's staffing levels. And they turned that proposal down flat, which tells you that they are seeking an erosion of the quality of education. But what we've seen at the Catholic teachers table is that if you make some progress, things can be cast in a different light. But there has been no progress at our bargaining table because the government hasn't met with us since the middle of December.
All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Bischof. As always, appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
Harvey Bischof, president of the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.